Good evening, respected guests and our dear attendees on behalf of the Social Tables family. Thank you so much for investing your time with us today evening. I'm Kalpana Chaudhary, a social worker by profession and a founder of Social Tables, managing trustee and chairperson of Janseva Foundation Being the Change, Lagna.com, a matrimony portal for differently abled and acid attack survivors, and a TEDx speaker, active member at FICCI, Flow, and CII IWN Maharashtra. Before diving into the guest introduction, let me introduce you to the Social Tables. We at Social Tables are committed towards sustainable development, societal well being, and environmental consciousness. We engage with global leaders, diplomacy, informative panel, inspiring speakers, impactful leaders, talent developers, and engaging audience. Every week, we bring out to you some of the brightest minds from a diverse sector to discuss over a few significant ongoing issues. In this week's speaker series, we have our guest, Mr. Murliji. A very warm welcome to you, Murliji.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you.
A very warm welcome to you on our today's speaker series. It's an utmost pleasure to have you here with us today. So in today's discussion, we are going to discuss on how policy making can stimulate sustainable economic growth post-COVID-19. Mr. Murli is the chairman and managing director of Shriram Properties and also the non-executive chairman of the Shriram Group. As a preeminent property developer, Mr. Murli delivers quality homes and commercial space to his trusting customers, rewarding career to his industrious employee and phenomenal returns to the various stakeholders in his business. His objective is to make the nation housing for all mission a reality. He also manages the non-financial services of the group like infrastructure, project development, engineering services, power generation, information technology, real estate development, and more recently, the aerospace business. Wow. He is also involved in several social welfare initiatives, helping blind, differently abled, and underprivileged children, women, and destitute elders through volunteer services organizations such as Give Life Chennai. Moving forward to today's session, firstly, we would like to know about the Shriram Group, how Shriram Group is preparing for post-COVID-19 world. Are there any changes in the business model that we shall notice? Sir, over to you.
This COVID phenomenon has caught everyone completely unaware, and it is changing the way people behave. It is changing the way organizations behave. It is even changing the way societies behave. Things are going to be very, very different. What we haven't seen in the last 70 years, we are going to see a very different way. Even every individual, how they behave. Very surprisingly, I was taking some statistics. For example, in Tamil Nadu, how many people applied for the pass for traveling from Chennai to their hometowns or other small districts? Surprisingly, 3.7 million people have filed for the e-pass. Out of which, more critical one is, out of the 3.7 million people who applied for e-pass, only about 600,000 people have applied for two-way pass to come back to Chennai, which means the remaining 3.1 million people have applied only one way. So we don't know what is happening today. For example, if you look at Tamil Nadu as a state, Chennai is just a name. But if you take the population of Chennai, it is the people from the rest of Tamil Nadu. They are the one who moved to Chennai. About 90% or 95% of the population, if you take, it is all from rest of Chennai, rest of Tamil Nadu. So now if they are looking at taking only one-way e-pass, there is something seriously happening underlying. We need to understand that. So probably, and also understand some of the smaller townships in tier 2 towns, people have made some investments into buying homes for their retirement. Some people, okay, it's my hometown, let me buy an asset. Some people, just for the sake of, making some investment. It's all getting filled back today. So people are going back and living there. And in Chennai, I hear that, a lot of people are not renewing their rentals. So it's a serious concern at this point of time. And the people moved away from joint family to nucleus family. Looks like people are going back to joint families now. So this corona has changed the way people approach their life, their behavior. Even the social fabric has been changing. Certain things for good, certain things, and I don't know whether it is for good, but it is changing. As an organization today, it's not only as an organization, every family, every individual, they need to realign themselves. What is likely to happen? It starts from an individual, goes to the family, goes to the organizations, goes to the society, goes to nations also. So even as a nation, it is time. We need to realign ourselves on certain aspects so that we could live a peaceful, prosperous, happy life. That's very, very important.
Absolutely. Very well said, sir. We have to collectively look all around and take a call. What, according to you, are the biggest challenge of the real estate industry right now?
Not only real estate, every industry is going through a major overhaul today and consolidation. This COVID particularly has redefined every industry, the way it behaves. I am seeing very big consolidation. People do not have a strong balance sheet. People do not have, deep pockets. They are all likely to suffer a lot. Whatever the stimulus which government could do, they have done that. So Prime Minister came back with a 20 lakh crore package. Some people might have commented that it is not good enough or has not addressed the entire need. But as a government also, they have limitation. So the country has been in, deep corruption, have been in policy paralysis for the last about 70 years. They've been doing whatever the best government could do at this point of time. It may not be sufficient enough also. While on this, every individual has to take charge for themselves. Every organization has to take charge for themselves. So I see a big consolidation which is happening today. I could see more than about 30-40% of the people will move out of business today. That's a big concern today. Can't be helped. So maybe, some new set of people, a new set of talent. See, India has always been an entrepreneurial nation. And India has been filled with, if you look at the number of employees, if you take out of 135 crore people, maybe about, if you take about 6-7 crore government employees and private sector employees, if you take maybe about another 10 crores. So remaining are all self-employed. So it's a very big number, which is not the case in any other country today. So our country has been very, very unique. So very, very entrepreneurial. I am sure maybe the current set of business, maybe about 20-30% of them will suffer, but some more new set of people will come in and occupy. But it is seeing a big consolidation today, big transformation today. A lot of people will suffer, and even some big people will move out of business. That's what I see.
I hope the industry review back soon. On that note, I would like to talk about our government, who is taking active initiative to support all the industries of the Indian economy. What are the new government policies that, according to you, are the most beneficial for the people across any industry?
See, government has, particularly government of India, have been very, very aggressive in looking at what all could be done. See, currently, people still, a lot of businessmen keep talking to me. Probably this is not good enough. Probably we need some more support. We needed some support here. Yes, partly it is true that some support is needed to be provided, but the current government has been working on for the last about 6 years on how do we bridge the divide between rich and poor. That has been the main focus. If you look at even some incidents like gas subsidy, it's a shame on our part of our Indian general public that lot of us have consumed what is, what is deserving to go to poor on the gas subsidy, on the ration subsidy. See, it's not 1 or 2 years. 70 years post-independence, we have been consuming what is supposed to go to the poor. So, which is ridiculous. So this government has been addressing those basic needs. If you can look at today, in the last about 4 or 5 years, the gas, subsidized the gas goes to the real poor today. Subsidized the ration goes to the real poor today. Subsidized, food items goes to the real poor today. So that has been one of the major achievements. Even the electricity. See, how many of the rich people, how many people who could afford, or wealthy people, have misused consumption of electricity. So consumption of assets which are supposed to go to the poor. Even for example, reservations. How many rich people are even today dominating the reservation space just because they belong to a particular section of the society? So these are all certain things. I think government has been rightly addressing that. While there is a deep expectation that we should also address, government should also address the some of the institution and corporations requirements. Yes, that needed to be done. But currently, the divide between rich and poor has been so wide today. Hence, government has been focusing quite a lot of things. On the other hand, certain things, people always talk about the budget, but recently, about a week ago, some new schemes were announced. It just went unnoticed. For example, some of the large infrastructure, for example, affordable housing or large infrastructure projects. Government of India has announced on 9th July, they released the order. No media even published. The investment which is made from this April 2020 to March 2024, next 4 years, whatever the investments made on large infrastructure projects and affordable housing projects, which will get complete income tax benefit and also dividend tax, free of dividend tax. So this has been announced on 9th July, which just went unnoticed.
Very recent.
So about 3 days ago, about 10 days ago. 9th July was the announcement. The paper was signed on 9th July, but just no media talked about it. So there are a lot of good things which are happening today. And Prime Minister Mission for Housing for All by 2022, that's been the mission. I doubt whether it is possible to do it by 2022, but there has been efforts to walk in this direction by giving a lot of incentives. But it is the industry to come up and do that. While government is doing their bit, probably certain other things we need to do as a nation today. See, if you look at how your subject, what is required to be done post COVID, change in the economic drivers. So if you look at India, see, each nation has got its own unique positioning, unique behavior. Each individual has got unique behavior. Each family has got a unique behavior. Each, society itself has got its own unique behavior. Likewise, nation also has got its own unique behavior. Let us understand how India has been behaving last maybe about 1,000 years. If you take, it's good to have a 1,000-year window, because last about 70 years post-independence is one. Before independence, maybe about 300, 350 years under British domination, and before that. So that it's easier to, and every human is a social animal. Every human has got a particular behavior. It does not change overnight. Probably I carry a DNA of my father, grandfather, grandfather. My children will carry that. Despite, let's say I send him to, good American schools, but still part of them will be this DNA they will carry. Part of them will be what they pick up. So it's a combination of these two, and it will not change overnight. Maybe it take 3-4 generations to change. So we need to understand 1,000-year history of India. If you look at India, about before British came in, the most economically powerful country in the world was India, and followed by China. India and China GDP to the world were close to about 68%, And India at one point of time had close to about 50% of world GDP.
Mm.
From there today, India is having less than 3% GDP to the world. So let us look at what has happened, how the social animal has to be addressed. If you look at the first 600, 700 years, in this 1,000 years history, there has been a trust amongst all the people, whether it's the rulers or the business community or the, workers community or the intellectual community. So I would put it as a four different groups: intellectual, ruler community, and your workers community, and the people who create wealth. So these four were the pillars with which India had been thriving for the first 600, 700 years. And India was not one large nation, or it was not controlled by one individual ruler. Maybe 1,000 such states. I hail from a small town called Pudukkottai. That is a princely state. And people were happily living for hundreds and hundreds of years under a particular ruler. It is not under a particular ruler, the social fabric system, such that these four people, all the four were equally respected, all the four were given equal rights, all the four were given, fairness in everything what they were doing. When British came in, they designed the entire framework to control Indian community. See, we need to understand, British also, the moment they came in, they did not do anything. The moment they took control of overall, the princely states, there were, a lot of people were fighting against British. But, at the end of the day, it was not a unified fight. Maybe my princely state fought and gave up sometime later. Then I became a subservient to British Kingdom. Likewise, some people were, some people fought a much longer period. But at some stage, everyone gave up. They became they died. So it became a British colony, you can say that. So once they took complete control, they brought in certain laws to control Indians. And they brought in certain change in the education system. So that's what we have been used to. So that's the, these are all certain things problem. The education system, what they brought in, keeping in mind how to keep Indians as slaves, how to keep Indian as a subservients to their cause. Then the, economic system, what they brought in, how to control the business community, not to create the right wealth, or even if they create that wealth, they can have a proper checks and balance to keep a control on those people who could potentially create wealth and thus serve the nation. So they controlled that. So it's a structurally they have done that. That's gone now. 1947. Thanks to great leaders, including our, father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi. Again, Mahatma Gandhi, when he came into India from South Africa, we need to understand he brought in certain knowledge of how to, bring people together, how we can bring all the, people together. See, when British had some kind of a control, so there was one intellect or there was one approach which was needed. Before Mahatma Gandhi came in, there were a lot of freedom fighters. There were a lot of freedom fighters who probably many of them died for the nation. Many of them died for the sake of, fighting against the British. It is not the nationalism which was missing. There was a nationalism. There was a patriotism. There were sacrifices. People were willing to sacrifice for the sake of the nation, but it did not yield the necessary result, desired result, until our Mahatma Gandhi came in with a specific approach of how to unify the entire nation. All the people who are willing to sacrifice, all the people who are willing to fight for the nation, fight for our freedom. So he had been the unified force. It is not the British. It is Mahatma Gandhi was the unified force. So he united. So we need to bring in that kind of intelligence today. That's very, very critical. Now let's come to post-independence. 1947, we got the independence. People are all very happy. Our great Jawaharlal Nehru came back and said, we don't need military for our country. Probably all the military should go and do civil service. So, I'm not questioning what went wrong or what went right, what went into their mind. So it's, not right or fair on our part to make a judgment at this point of time. Whoever has done it at that point of time, they've done it what they thought was right. But what is supposed to be right, we need to do it today. So if you look at, post-independence, we just continued the British Raj system. That's one major aspect. Probably 1947, 15th August, we should have abolished the education system, what has been brought in by British. We should have abolished the business practices, what has been practiced by British, or we should have abolished the entire constitution. We should have created new constitution by ourselves. Probably we could have done some mistakes, does not matter. Probably. Anyway, what has happened has happened. If you look at how the growth of India post-independence, first, 10, 15 years, the people who fought for freedom, the people who sacrificed their lives. So whether it is, unfortunately, we lost Mahatma Gandhi too early after the independence. Probably if we had lived for another 10 years, I don't know whether things could have been better or not. I don't know. But unfortunately, there was no such thing. Great leaders like Rajagopalachari, or quite a lot of people, Patel, a lot of people were there. First 10 years, it went on in, having a lot of pride on those people who fought for independence. If you look at sometime after, particularly India became a republic, 1956, India became a rule book. So at that point of time, the bureaucrats played a very major role in shaping the direction of the country. So if you look at, most intellectual people, if you look at 1956 to 1990 or mid 80s, bureaucrats completely ruled, and they decided. Even if you needed a telephone connection, there is a bureaucrat in Delhi will decide whether you deserve a telephone connection or not. If you need a gas connection, if you need a television connection. So, there was a bureaucrat who was deciding that. So that was the first, close to about 40, 45 years of journey, controlled regime. And our late, Narasimha Rao, a great visionary, in 1991, brought in some kind of a financial reform. So that has been one major turning point for India. But today, let us look at, even today, if the country has to be directed only by one set of people, it is not going to do good to the nation. Now, I think we need to get back what is required. See, India is again, even today, though, Bharat has one nation today, but I would still say India is divided by maybe thousands such princely minds of people. Each community today, our caste system is so deep. Each caste system or community or even the state, see, every state has got its own pride. It has got its own social fabric. Not even the state, even within the state, each pockets behave very different. Right. So this has been our social animal, I would say. It will take long time to change. See, in the Western world, they have developed an art of making certain things very big. So if you take automobile, they developed an art of making something big. Manufacturing, they developed an art of making certain things big. Some of the industries, they developed an art of making very big industry. India, it is not going to be possible because our mindset is very different. So we need to also understand how this social animal works. That's very important. This human animal, how is it going to work? Hence, our laws to be structured, our regulations to be structured, very different. So British model cannot work any longer. Time has come now. Here, ours is a very trust-based society. See, there are few societies which are rule-based. There are few societies which are trust-based. So America is a rule-based society. You cannot just copy the rule-based society to a trust-based society. Here, people trust each other more than anything else. For example, we are into commercial vehicle finance. One of our business verticals is commercial vehicle finance. We have been financing trucks, I mean commercial vehicles. Our recovery rate has been close to about 97-98% for the last about 30 years.
Wow.
And if you take any of the large financial institution, their recovery rate is about 60-65%.
Oh.
Why? We did a detailed analysis. We understood we give a loan to a truck driver. We identify a truck driver and do some background check, whether he is living with his parents, whether he is living with his wife and children, whether he is living with his sisters or brothers. If he falls into that category, I mean, he is eligible to get a loan from us. Why? Because when he is having the social fabric, his, I mean, commitment to repayment has been one of the highest.
Wow.
And if somebody is not falling into this category, his commitment to repayment is not the same level. So, but if you apply any KYC norms defined by multinational banks or multinational companies, this truck driver will not fall into the category. He will not be eligible because he may not have proper income tax. He may not be having, paying income taxes because he is not, I mean, wealthy enough to pay income tax. But if you choose, I mean, based on his KYC, then he will not be eligible. But he will repay properly. Even today, if you take some of the smallest vendors, today, I mean, they borrow money at 30% rate of interest, 20% rate of interest, 40% rate of interest. The repayment is one of the highest. It is because, not because they can afford, it is because of the social system. So we need to understand how the social system works. So here, the social, we trust each other. India is a trust-based society. Hence, the rules also should be defined, keeping trust as the base and look at what could be done. So time has come to change the entire, probably 1956, we rewrote the constitution. Maybe at the time we had limited knowledge, limited intelligence at that point of time. Post-independence, I mean, everyone was having, different frame of mind in writing the constitution. So, I mean, I will not blame first 7-8 years, I mean, whatever the intelligence at that point of time which was available, with which the constitution was written. I think time has come now, 2020, maybe Corona period we should use to rewrite the entire constitution, keeping trust as the base. And we should write this as my view.
Very well defined and very in-depth knowledge what you have shared with us today. Thank you. Very rightly said, sir. Moving on to, with a change in the dynamics of the entire market and economy, what are the changes in consumer behavior and perception with regards to real estate? Are there any demands of the people prior to investing or buying a house or office space?
Demand for house is going to stay long. So Indian, again, there are a few things Indians cannot live without. So again, India today, any decision is taken by the woman in the house.
Yes.
We think that a men-dominated society, it is not. It's a woman-dominated society, we need to understand. Whereas US, I would say, I mean, people think that woman-dominated society, it is not. It's a men-dominated society. I mean, till today, US has not elected one woman president so far. Many of the key positions, US has not elected any woman so far. People misread. I mean, having freedom to wear whatever the dress they want, having freedom to drink the way they want it, having freedom, have freedom to socialize themselves is what they think freedom. It is not. The Indian woman who has been empowered to be the kingmaker in the house. The society is built by, families. So Indian woman is the most powerful woman. So it's a, I mean, woman-based society, woman-led society, India. It's not the leader alone. It's a woman-led society. So housing, there will be a constant demand because woman has the sense of social security by having, house, or by having another house, or by having a third house. So women, Indian women, particularly have got, few comfort what they derive is one is that family, their dear ones. That's the first comfort. Second comfort is, shelter on their own. Third comfort is maybe, supporting their own siblings. Then the fourth is gold. So hence there will be a constant demand on the homes. In the next 20 years, I don't see that's coming down. It will only increase further. So as an organization, we are, sensitive about this, and we are going very, very aggressive in our growth. Probably we could grow, 100% year on year for the next 4 years. I see that's an opportunity.
Wow, very interesting to know that, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now in these unprecedented times, digitalization of every business has become extremely imperative. So how much of a role does technology play over here? Most of the brands from the numerous sectors are investing in virtual tour marketing campaigns. What are your views on this?
Yeah, technology, we need to make use of it extremely well. India has done very well on the, I will not say technology front, service front. Using technology, we have done exceedingly well on the service side. So we need to use this technology, and technology will be the way to reach out. Probably, still decision making will be by touch and feel. That's very, very important. Virtual marriages are not going to be real in India. So probably, some people may look at coming in page 3 in Times of India and do something, but that may be, point not 1%. But here, it's a touch and feel, which is going to make the big difference. But technology will be the enabler. And technology, if somebody uses the technology properly, they could reduce the cost of sales. They could reduce the cost of doing business. So all these areas, it could help. So hence technology will play a very, very important role in defining how the future business is done. Otherwise, it will become uneconomical. Otherwise, it will become inefficient. If you do not use proper technology, you will become inefficient.
Absolutely.
So if you are inefficient, you will be driven out of business. And it's going to be extremely, extremely competitive. Moving forward, business is going to be very, very competitive unless you use proper technology in every aspect. In conducting the business, it's going to be very, very difficult. Hence, technology has got a very, very major role to play.
I'm sure, sir, we are all doing these conferences from home now. I think it's much better and feasible, but people will take time to adjust to the change as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Dr. Mahendra Nath Pandey, Honorable Union Minister for Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, recently said that skilling up, skilling and reskilling of the India's workforce will play a crucial role in the success of the government's vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat. What is your take, sir?
Absolutely. He said it extremely right. So that's the most important need of the hour today. India has got a huge, workforce, and the demography is such that we have got talent on everything. So we need to have proper training. That's very important. So there are two things we talked about earlier: scaling up. So a lot of business are not able to scale up. It is because they do not have trained manpower. So we need, few things we need. One is technology, the trained manpower, capital. All three are important. People think only capital is important for growth. It is not. So I would put, trained manpower as the number one, technology as the number two, third I would put it as a capital. So this is the order with which I will put. So he said it rightly. We need to do this. For example, I'll give you an example. If you take, India has got a lot of talent. If you take trained manpower, and India is, Indians per se are extremely good in services. So that's very, very critical. So we need to use where we have strengths. We should not be trying where we do not have strengths. So if I have the skill in playing, let's say, cricket, I should be trying my hands in playing cricket. I should not be, trying my hands playing football. I'll probably do injustice to myself. So likewise, if you've got, something interesting that you should do wherever your talent. For example, I do not know. Next time when you call a plumber to your house, attending to any of the work. Maybe 10 times you call. Out of 10 times, 10 different plumbers you call. Maybe 4 out of 10 times or 5 out of 10 times, you'll find a person from Orissa.
Oh.
So there is a recent study which has been done by one of my friends in a small village, that area in Orissa. The entire people in that area are all plumbers. See, it comes to them naturally. Likewise, there is another set of people. I mean, it's not carpenters. I mean, the goldsmith people.
Yeah.
There are a few set of people. They are extremely good in goldsmith. So, if you look at, we have got natural talent. So we need to understand that. So we need to identify and train them how to scale up. See, for example, if you take, plumber and electricians, the kind of money what they make, or what they could potentially make, they make a much higher earning compared to what IT professional today or fresh engineering graduate gets today. In fact, their entry salary to a good plumber or a good electrician is much higher compared to entry level engineering graduate today. That's the reality today. But unfortunately, they are not given enough opportunity to excel. So what minister said is very right. There is a time which has come now, maybe next 3 years time, we should go very aggressive, make sure that maybe about 50 crore people are fully trained. And put them on the, then they'll find for example, when this corona happened, I gave some suggestion. If you take Europe and UK, Middle East, the Arab community, Europe and UK, they have a natural inclination towards India. They have some soft corner towards India. Given a choice, probably they would come and live in India and spend their time. If you look at the aged population in Europe, UK, and Middle East, close to about 90% of them are not given proper treatment, or not given proper care. Probably its time has come now. We let us train maybe about 5 million people on the nursing and 5 million doctors to support these people. Maybe create, in India, maybe about 100 such centers or 200 such centers. Allow these Europeans to or Middle East people to come and peacefully die, or die with a lot of dignity. Today, people would like to die with dignity. A lot of people have got made a lot of money, but they do not die with dignity.
Absolutely.
We probably, we could give a, this is a karma bhumi. So this is a place probably we could give. So have, dignified way of living your last period of life. Now, if you train maybe about 5 million people, that alone can create easily $1 trillion economy. One industry. If you do that, only, they could go to other countries and just do the servicing part, which comes naturally to us. See, it's not that it can come to everyone. So for Indians, it comes, serving somebody is a natural one. One of my nutritionists said, how do I cook this? She said, just, tell your wife or, anybody in your family, even if they have not gone to the, kitchen, any woman has not gone to the kitchen for the last 20 years, does not matter. In 2 days time, they'll make it right, because it has been there in the DNA for the last several generations. So maybe 2 days time, they'll get it right. So likewise, the service has been there in our blood. So this service industry alone, if we take where the world is suffering today, it is not that, they do not have that strength which we have. That alone can create $1 trillion economy. So I completely agree with him. We need to go all out to train people wherever they have. If you look at some time back, anybody who's a nurse who's supposed to be from Kerala. If you recall any hospital, you go, it used to be from Kerala. It is not that Kerala. The people, particular, if you take even a lot of massage parlor today, people from Northeast come and do it. We need to understand the science behind this. It comes naturally to some people, and they excel very fast in what they could do. That's very important.
Totally agree with you, sir. And skilling is very important. And I think our leaders are doing a brilliant job with all these schemes. I hope these schemes empower India's workforce.
Yeah.
Yes. Chennai is facing a major crisis due to the pandemic. Recently, Tamil Nadu government announced a curfew again in early July. Now, is the situation there now? How is the situation there now? What are the new initiatives of Give Life Chennai for the same? You have been volunteering there, right?
Yeah. See, this corona, I mean, probably we need right intelligence to manage. See, this frequent lockdown is not going to help. It's only, I mean, it's just giving a gap and coming back again. So, government of Tamil Nadu did a good job initially. We were very happy about what they have done. But unfortunately, I mean, when they opened this, I mean, there were three incidents which has hit them very badly. First was Tablik, who came in and I mean, created some kind of a spread. That was the first one. The second, when they opened the market, city market, that's where the whole spread started. Second major one. The third one, the liquor shops. So this, they should have avoided the liquor shop. So which is another major one. So which is, I mean, allowed the spread now. Unfortunately, what was very well controlled. In fact, Tamil Nadu was, I mean, I would say number one or number two in the entire country. Today, it is deteriorated to so bad today. It is because of these three incidents. Today, I mean, just by mere lockdown, which is not going to help. Probably keep 2 weeks lockdown does not matter, or 3 weeks lockdown does not matter. But we need to go house by house. We need to check every individual house and isolate whatever if there are problems. Then you could bring into some kind of a solution. Or you don't need, I mean, lockdown. Even today, we have got a very good machinery. We could go house to house and make sure that whoever has got some kind of a symptoms are isolated. That's very important. And they are put in, I mean, under proper care. Hence, I mean, it will be possible to address. Otherwise, I mean, current, I mean, just have 1 week holiday or 1 week, I mean, 2 weeks lockdown, which is not going to help, which is going to only impact very badly in the economy also. So we are going all out to support from our group. We have been reaching out to people who are in need and supporting a big way. And I mean, one major thing is that I mean, we are also looking at how to capitalize the opportunity to reach out to people who are in need of employment. That's very critical. So today we need to give them confidence. Yes, and I mean, we could support them. So we are being all out to reach out to people there.
Are you there, sir?
Yeah, I'm there.
Yeah, it's great to know about Give Life Chennai, and I hope things get better soon there. Thank you, Mr. Murli, for your wonderful inputs. Now, I would like to ask you one last question for your young audience who loves you and look up to you. What was the biggest challenge you faced while studying at the Harvard Business School, and how did you overcome it?
It was not a big challenge. I enjoyed it. I mean, I went, I mean, it is not a regular MBA program. It's a program called OPM, 100% Management Program. It's 3 sessions over a 2.5 years time. So I had to be away from the family. I had to be away from the business. So I was still managing both. And I mean, probably I had to work 20, 21, 22 hours a day during that period. It was quite enjoyable, and we made, I mean, friends all over the world. Today, I could, I mean, say with a lot of pride, I got friends in over about 150 countries today who could, I mean, who could be reached out at any point of time for anything. It's a very strong community, strong network. So that way, I mean, it's very useful and helpful.
That's incredible, sir. So
a lot of new learnings.
I'm sure. And I'm learning a lot from you, sir. I mean, while doing this whole interview, I was wondering, I should tell you this, sir. What are you doing here? You should be in Parliament. Seriously, I mean it. You have
That's
a
great.
vast knowledge and in-depth knowledge about the policies and the governance and how it works and everything and all. So I think you should think about it also. I mean, it's my suggestion, and we would love
That's
to. Yes,
if there is a, if it is God willing, yes.
statued hoga sir, and I will be the first one to come and wish you there.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you.
you. So now moving on to a little fun part of it, rapid fire, a quick rapid fire. Who inspires you the most?
Mahatma Gandhi.
Okay. And what's the greatest risk you have ever taken?
Sorry,
What is the greatest risk you have ever taken?
I never take any risk. I take life very simple.
Okay. With the flow.
Yeah, I just go with flow. I believe in my faith.
Huh.
I mean, I just trust him 100%. I don't go to temple every day. I
Okay.
don't go and trouble him every day. I just believe that he is there to take care. I need to do everything myself. He has given enough intelligence. You need to use your intelligence the way you could serve the community. At the end of the day, you put yourself ahead of yourself. That's very, very important. You put a higher cause, I mean, ahead of you. That's good enough. And do not look at anything which is, which can bring ill will to a family. That's very, very important. So just do not indulge in any act, whatever the act, even if it is going to give you $1 billion, just do not even entertain your thought if it can bring ill will to a family. See, I used to say this when I started the real estate business. I used to address my small group at that point of time. Even today, I address when you build a home, keep in
Yes.
mind when the home is completed. Imagine your parents or your children or your siblings
Hmm.
or your family walks around the community.
Hmm.
What do you want them to hear? Just
Hmm.
keep that in mind and
Hmm.
build your home accordingly. Build, whatever the business accordingly. So likewise, when we do whatever we do, keep that in mind when your own, I'm not talking about 730 crore people, what do they think? Nobody's interested also. Your own children, your own family members, your own parents, what do you want them to hear? Keep that in mind. In every bit of act, what you do is good enough. You don't need to go to temple every day. If you have this conscious right,
Hmm.
I think you'll be perfectly all right, is what is my view.
True, 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 sir. Your roots has to be very strong. Your virtues have to be very right.
Absolutely.
What is the most memorable moment of your life?
I love my mother. Every bit of time I spent with her, that has been my memorable one. I cherish that she's not there today, but I cherish that every bit of moment.
Okay, if you could change one thing about your life, what would it be?
I wish I go back 20 years younger.
Oh,
With this,
really?
with this, with this kind of maturity, with this kind of knowledge,
Huh.
probably I wish I'm 20 years younger. I
Wow,
could do a lot to the community.
wow, such a noble thought, sir. Thank you so much. And if you could change, yeah, place where you love being the most,
Sorry,
place where you love being the most, any
my home,
place,
my
home,
home.
home, okay. And your favorite hobby?
Hobby,
Yeah.
I love to play cricket.
Oh, you play cricket? Wonderful. And a very last question. If you were to be the Prime Minister of India for a day, what is the one thing you would do?
Correct. Our Prime Minister Narendra Modi is being doing a fantastic job. It's difficult to replace some of the acts what he is doing. I wish, him to stay much longer, healthier, so that the country can benefit a lot.
Hmm.
It is easy to dream, but may not be possible certain things. So you should dream what is possible for you. But the other part, what you said, representing in the parliament and taking some portfolio and delivering is doable. So I don't want a dream which is not possible to
True, true.
achieve.
So yes, I would definitely want you to see somewhere there because you are very your focus is very clear. There's a lot of clarity on what you want and how you want the nation to build, and you have said it very beautifully. So this was a quick and very interesting. A message for social tables now.
You are doing a fantastic job. Keep spreading goodwill around people. That's very, very important. And we need to reach out to people. See, today, I mean, God has not given equal intelligence to everyone. We are about 730 crore people in the world, 135 crore people in our country. Maybe certain intelligence I have, certain intelligence you have, certain intelligence somebody else has got. Hence, it is our responsibility to reach out to the people who do not have. That's very important. Just not money. People think that, haves and haven't. It's not that money. It is even the knowledge. It is even the love. It is even, the intelligence. So it is even helping hand. It could be money also, but people always misconstrue that it is money. No, it could be somebody maybe need of love, nothing else, or just a hug, just a smile. We need to look at, or look at their eyes and happily blink eyes, maybe good enough. So, but we need to reach out. So in Tamil, we used to say there are two things. Varmayai udai kodiyethu iyalame. So varmai is poverty, iyalame is inability. Okay. So between poverty and inability, one of our famous poets said, it is inability is the bigger killer than the poverty. One can come out of poverty easily, but if somebody has got inability, that's the biggest poverty. Hence, so we should reach out to people who are having inability. Generally people try to address poverty. No, try to address inability first. That's very important. This is what my mother used to teach me when I was young. So we need to address this part. So that's very, very critical.
Thank you so much, sir. So before we conclude, a few words of wisdom or advice you would like to give our audience?
This is one of the tough period, difficult period, but this is the time we should be very, very courageous. This is the time we should be very, bold. This is the time we should not lose our cool, and we should not only take care of ourselves, we also have the responsibility to take care of our society around us. That's very, very important. And world is not going anywhere. This century belongs to India. Sure. Next 10 years belong to India. Maybe next 20 years belong to India. So we should seize this opportunity. Everyone. It is not one prime minister or few council of ministers can lift this country. It's 135 crore people, little can lift the country. So hence we all play a very, very important role. We have very important role to play. Let's all lift the nation to the best possible one.
Very important message, sir. Thank you so much. Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much, sir. Let me take an opportunity to give you all a vote of thanks. It's a great honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks to Mr. Murliji, who, despite his busy schedule, has found time to grace this special interaction. We are extremely grateful to you, sir, for sharing your words of encouragement and giving us valuable inputs. Your eminent presence has indeed made this interaction a memorable one, and we unite to thank you from the bottom of our heart for your kindness, interest, and support. We wish you all the very best for your future endeavors. Thank you and stay safe. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.